Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. All right, welcome back. This is East Coast Adventures with the Dirt and Vert podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Mike.
And we have a special guest today, Brian Zickefoose. And did I get it right?
Yeah, you got it.
Perfect. So Brian just ran two back-to-back 100 milers that he podiumed both races. Me and Matt and Mike got the pleasure of watching him run at the Pistol Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
And his time was actually good enough to break the course record and would have actually broke the state record, but there was two people competing that day. So Brian still broke both records, but didn't get the actual state record, but still an amazing performance. And then right behind that, he finished Umstead 100 and got third place, I believe, overall, Brian. It's still 15 hours. Just impressive, man. Looking through your ultra sign up results, you are definitely a very talented runner.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't care, man, just tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running.
Well, my name is Brian Zickefoose. I'm 42 years old. I've just been running basically since 7th grade. Started running 7th grade track because I was cut from the baseball team. Like I've told a lot of people, like I never aspired to be a runner. It just kind of happened that way, due to me just not being quite as talented, and I was kind of a runt as a kid. So I always kind of grew up being, the smallest in the class and all that. And my dad was a really good baseball player, and his dad and all that. And so, I just thought I'd always be a baseball player and follow my dad's footsteps, but that's just not the way fate played out, with how I was as a 7th grader, being with shaky hand-eye coordination and all that. And I didn't have it quite together then, and I was so small. But the crazy thing was I got cut from that team in 7th grade baseball, and that's basically what started my running career, is because the baseball coach said I was the fastest one out there and I should just run track. So I just kind of begrudgingly ran track because I thought that's what you had to do. There's nothing else going on in the spring out here in the country where I grew up. Like, we didn't have all the other crazy sports like lacrosse or whatever else they got now, but it was either you played baseball or you ran track. That was it. And so I was like, well, I'm going to run track and see what happens. And, I basically got cut from the 8th grade team as well, ran track again, and then just kind of embraced it after a while. Like, I told a couple other guys, like a podcast, the ultra running guys, that's kind of how it all started for me. Was like, I didn't plan on being a runner. It just kind of chose me. Like, this was the gift God gave me. It wasn't baseball. It wasn't football and all that. And my coordination and everything came along later in life, like 10th, 11th grade. And then I probably could have played baseball at that time and succeeded in other sports. But it just seems like I was just born to run. And I kind of just ran with that. And so I've been running ever since then, off and on, I'd say. I don't know if you know my story at all, as far as it wasn't always sunshines and rainbows for me.
Yeah.
No, I've not explored much of your story. I wanted to kind of learn it today on the podcast. So you are welcome to share whatever you would like.
Well, I'll just quickly sum up my high school career was very promising, and I probably should have gotten a full ride Division I scholarship by the time I was a junior senior, and that's the way that trajectory I was on by the time I was a freshman. And I was a very good middle distance runner, 800 to miler, and that was my specialty. But I could also jump in the 400 and just go with just about anybody on the track and hang with
Mm-hmm.
them because I had that natural raw speed. And but the endurance, I didn't have the natural endurance like some of the guys I had run with in high school and in college and beyond. Just had this natural endurance. I never had that. I just had the speed part and the will and determination. And
Mm-hmm.
so I set out to be a very good runner, and I focused on that. I quit football in ninth grade and started running full time. And I thought by the time I was in 10th grade, I was looking at winning the state championships in cross country track, and I had a lot of schools looking at me. And um, at that time, it probably about 10th grade year, it looked very promising to be able to do that. Well, for me, like growing up the runt I was, and being bullied and picked on and all that, and I did grow up in church, and so I did have a strong religious background as far as that concerned. So I knew like right from wrong and all that, and but I just felt like everything I had gone through was all rejection. So up until that point in my life, I've never really been accepted. And then when I started running races and doing well in school and getting more popularity, and all of a sudden invited to these parties I would have never been invited to,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the power of influence that really just took over me, and just thinking I'm on the top of the world now, and I'm gonna embrace what I always thought I wanted, which was the attention, the glory, the girls, um, the popularity and all that. And I
Yeah.
fell into that trap, knowing like this world and what it has to offer as far as the drugs, alcohol, women, and all that. Now I know, looking back, like as far as my walk with Christ, where I'm at now compared to when I was 16, compared to 42, is completely different. Because
Mm-hmm.
back then I just wanted to be liked and accepted, and I didn't realize like living this way, I was accepted by the world standard, but at the end, it's just a destruction waiting to happen. And for me, I ignored all that, what I was taught growing up in church and all that, and I just wanted what everybody else wanted. And so I fell into that, and it wasn't long where I was smoking pot, drinking on the weekends, and my training went wayside. And before you knew it, I basically lost most of my majority D1 scholarships by the time I was a senior. And I was looking at community college or nothing, or these real small little schools.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, well, I'll give up on running, and I'll go to community college. And within my first year, I meet this guy, just shows up at my church out of nowhere. He was a 5-time national champion, I believe, and cross country and track in the 5,000, 10,000. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, where'd this dude come from? Right? And he starts getting to know me, and then he's the one that really got me back to running again. His name Jose Manjarez, and so after that point, we started just training again and got back to college and um, trying to run again, like what I ran in high school, just a different type of training, but this time I was sober. quit all the hanging around and doing all this crazy stuff. And basically, at that point, um, I was running faster than I ever had in high school. A year after high school, with training with this guy, and we were posting some times, and he was sending them out to some of the college people I had applied to before and looked at me before, and I ended up at this small college in Concord University in West Virginia, and it was just a good fit, small little community college, and like not a community, it was D2, but it was just more of a home type situation, like home field.
Yeah.
Like they took care of you, and it was a really good program at the time, and I grew with them, and it was just like this was my life, was like always a roller coaster of success and failure, and like the same exact thing that happened in high school happened in college. Like I started out really well, but then tanked at the end. I always say like addicts start everything really well and then they fade. During my college years, I had some really good years the first couple years, but after that, it's just like the same thing over again. In high school, it was just the roller coaster. Got back into drinking too much and smoking pot, doing some things I know I shouldn't have done, and kind of just tanked my career from that point forward. And I just continued to make bad choices since then at that point, like in time. And it was just like an avalanche that came upon me that I didn't see coming. Because at this point, like I come from a good family, you know, my dad is the superintendent of Lincoln County Schools. My mom was a teacher. My sister's a teacher, and all my other sisters. I got 5 sisters, and all of them were like doing well in life. Like I'm the only one that's crazy and like out there wilding out, and supposed to be like going to school to be a teacher, which I ended up doing, even though like I failed out of a class for student teaching and all that up in West Virginia. Came back, went to school at Gardner Webb, and spent half of my time at Appalachian finishing my student teaching license, and that was in 2005 to 2000, early 2007. And so I had to finish 4 years of college in like 6. So I should have been a doctor or something, you know, but it didn't turn out that way. I was just a PE teacher. It just took me a lot longer to get there than most people.
Well, they always say it's about the journey, bro.
Yeah, 2 years of community college and 3 years at Concord University, and then another year and a half at Gardner Webb, split with Appalachian. Finally, get my teacher's certificate. Talking about stubborn. Like, you weren't going to tell me I wasn't going to get my license because I was going to get it. And so I went through that many colleges just to be able to say I was going to be a teacher in North Carolina, only to have a teaching career last one semester.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, here, the twist here is like, I haven't told this to too many people, and like, I don't think I even said it on the podcast, but I feel like now's the time and the place. Like, if you really want to know who Brian Zickefoose is, this is where it all started from. Because I'm going to have to humble myself to do it. I ran into a situation where I could not get out of, and my parents couldn't get me out of, dealing with drugs, and lost my teaching career over it overnight. And everything that I had ever worked for overnight, just over drugs, was gone.
Mm.
And here I am sitting with lengthy sentence I could be facing. And I'm like, wow, how did I get to this point? And so it all starts with me, with just wanting to be accepted, be a part of something.
Mm-hmm.
A lot like the ultra running community now is like we're all a part of something, and we didn't have
Yes.
to do anything to get there. Like people just welcome you and accept you. Well, that's all I ever wanted my whole entire life. So when you find the ultra running community, it's like, oh yeah, well these people are like real, and you know the attention I always was seeking for just wasn't
Mm-hmm.
what it was cracked up to be, you know. And so at that point in my life, like, you know, that was in 2007, 2000, late 2007. So I had to basically start my whole life over. And at that point, I don't think I never ran a race again until it was like 2014 Charlotte Marathon. So well over 10 years had passed. And during that 10 years of me basically losing everything, working these hardcore labor jobs like concrete and asphalt, building aluminum fence, like hardcore labor jobs. Um, Not somebody with a college degree would be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But at this time, this was during the recession as well, '08, '09,
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
And it was hard enough to find a job at all, especially if you had a record.
Mm-hmm.
So you add that on top of it. Basically, I was like a straight up alcoholic drunk. My days consisted of getting up in the morning, smoking pot all day, going working, getting home, getting drunk, started over again. And that's what I did for 10 years.
Wow. Wow.
And I was smoking a pack a day or more, cigarettes, and hadn't run a race since two.
Did you run any during that time?
Well, some, like here and there, I'd run a few miles here and there just for the heck of it. But I always said I was going to come back to running, and that was
Mm-hmm.
always the love of my life in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But the drugs and alcohol took over so much at that point where I couldn't even if I wanted to.
So
Um,
what was the turning point for you? After 10 years, what finally snapped?
well, I met my wife, which I'd known her since seventh grade. She was my oldest sister's best friend. She's a few years older than me, but um, we met at my granddad and grandma's 60th anniversary party where she had this little band and she was singing for, and they had hired her to play. And so we met, crossed paths again. And this point in my life, um, I didn't think I had much to live for. I didn't think my life had much value. I had no direction. And somehow we connected, and she just saw something in me I didn't see in myself.
Mm.
And what she later said, it was just my heart. It's, I don't know how else she saw anything in me at all because I had nothing to offer, dude. Nothing. I wasn't
Yeah.
rich. I wasn't rich. I was driving around in this beat up '95 Jeep Cherokee that had cherry bombs on it. Sound like hell. Um, I was not a great catch in Charlotte, North Carolina. Maybe out in the boondocks up where we come from, I would have been a good catch, but not down in Charlotte with all them millionaires and all them people. But she could have got way better, is all I'm saying. If she
Yeah.
really wanted, she could have got way better than me. But she saw something in me I didn't know I even had in me, and that's my heart. And I've always had that heart for people and that love for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I really was a compassionate person growing up with five sisters, you know. you have that compassion for people because you see what they've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to treat people like they've been treated. And that's what really started it. So we dated early 2013. I was engaged April 2014. We were going to get married, and that next year, November, October actually, and so it was like June 2013 where I said I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes. I'm going to run Charlotte Marathon in 6 months, and people thought I was crazy, and because they knew how I was living, but I was dead serious, and I did it. I ran that race in 6 months in 3:21.
Wow. Look at that.
And
Pack a day
so
can't stop this man.
a year after that, I qualified for Boston in 2:55, and then 2 years later, I ran 2:28 Ocala Marathon, and I was on
That's pretty
fire.
fast.
That's being completely sober, quit drinking, quit doing all this crazy stuff, and back to what I should have been able to do all along. And it was like in the process, I was in AA, going back to church, and really getting involved with that, and just building my relationship with God, number one, and
Mm-hmm.
and then it's been a process ever since. And so I did the marathon whole gig, chasing Boston qualifiers and PRs from 2014 when I first started through 2019 when I ran Boston. And after Boston, I realized that all I did was change one addiction for another.
Yeah.
And which a lot of ultra marathoners, if you talk to them, like they had previous addictions, something. And it's a very common thing in ultra running and endurance racing
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Is addiction is very close aligned with that,
Mm-hmm.
because people go from one extreme to the other, and that's kind of what I did. It's like I chased that high in a different way. I chased the fame and the glory and the PRs and all of that, and I lost my way a little bit. And so, still doing all right. And in the meantime, you know, we built a cleaning business. As soon as we were married, I started this cleaning business, and it's kind of taken off. And over these years, like now, I got a 7-year-old daughter. Um, my wife is staying at home. We got a thriving business. I'm doing good running, and I'm still like missing something. And because I'm chasing these highs, and
Mm-hmm.
when I don't set a PR or don't win or do something that I thought I was going to do, it ended up being a failure. I don't know if you ever experienced that.
Yep.
Like how you built something up in your mind, you trained something for months, and then you get to the day and it doesn't go quite as planned, even though everybody else says you did great. You
Mm-hmm.
still kind of feel like, well, I feel like I should have done better. They're
Yeah.
like, but you won. I didn't set the goal. I didn't hit the goal pace I thought I should have hit. And so it's like hard to explain to somebody that's not as crazy minded as me, but that's just kind of how I always viewed it. Like, well, I'm just going to do as best as I possibly could. And if I had it in my mind, this is what I should have been able to do, and I come up short, then it was a loss. It didn't matter what place I got or anything else. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is when I just got back into, okay, what am I really running for? Like, what am I really living for? Um, and I found out I'm just living for myself because I say I believe in God, and on one hand, I'm living just as the world does. I'm just not doing drugs. I'm like, so I'm still chasing the fame and the glory and all that. So I got my mind on the wrong thing. And so as soon as I started focusing back on what really mattered was my family, my relationship with God, and um, loving other people and humbling myself and getting outside of myself and getting to that point, of like, okay, my marathon PRs might not come anymore. And that doesn't matter. But what matters is how I love other people. And so, how am I going to be a light in this dark world? And how am I going to really truly be used? And then that's when I decided, after like some prayer and thinking about it, like, why don't we do something that scares you, that was like your first time running your marathon, was like it scared you. You had no time goal, you had no place goal, you don't care what place you got it at. I was like 93rd in the race, or something like that. But I didn't care what place it was. And then just a few years later, I'm thinking about winning the thing. And I forgot all about being 93rd a few years before. And so it's like, how'd that happen? And so I'm like, okay, let's refocus. So I ran JFK 50 miler in 2019 was my first ultra. And from there, I didn't think about running another ultra. It just kind of happened. Right? Once I did that, I was like, I did better than I thought I would. And then it just kind of spurred from there. And then my ultra running career has just kind of taken off since then. And that's my main focus now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of where we're at.
What was your expectation going into the JFK 50 miler?
Finish.
Well, you did really good. I mean, you're 6 hours and 40 minutes. You were 19th overall.
Yeah.
6 hours for a 50 miler?
That's moving.
That's pretty quick.
That's awesome, actually, to just go out and first 50-mile trail run and do it in 6 hours something.
Yeah, that's pretty fast.
Was that something after you finished you thought, this is this is the direction I want to go with ultras, or was you kind of hooked as soon as you did it?
Well, not exactly. Like I wasn't really hooked as soon as I did it, but I was just I felt like this accomplishment, and exceeded my expectations how it would go. Because even though me and my coach Mark Bartonhorn, he's been working with me ever since that first race. He started working with me in early June, actually building up to it. So we had a plan going in, since I didn't run on trails, didn't train on trails. That I'd take it as easy as possible. Then I would turn it into a 26-mile flat long trail race, and where I'd start picking people back up. And so that's kind of what happened with that. And I just experienced the first time where you hit that real low and come out of it. Like, I don't think I ran a race long enough to be able to experience that, because you really don't have the time to do that in a marathon. Once you hit a low, it's over.
Yeah.
You don't have 6 hours to come back to life. And so I hit this real low at 38 and thought I was done. And then all of a sudden, a few miles later, I'm feeling good again. And I'm like, wow, that was like crazy. And so it was set in the back of my mind. And so I think it was, let's see, that was 19. And in 2020, I was looking at trying to qualify for the world championship in the 50 miler, like based off my training. Like I thought it might be possible. So that's when I signed up at the pistol for the first time with the 50, and then they canceled. And that's why I ended up running my first 100 miler that same year, just a month later at CMO.
Yeah.
because it was scheduled early April. And I was like, well, I'm already in shape and everything's canceled, so I'm just going to go run this 100-mile race and see what happens. And then I end up winning it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, let's not breeze over the fact that you ran a 50K pistol in 3 hours and 27 minutes. So I assume that was probably virtual, or did you go do it
Yeah.
there?
Well, that was the next year. Um, they canceled again, and I had signed up for the 50-miler again. So I've been trying to come to Pistol now for 3-something years, dude.
Yeah.
They won't let me come.
So
They
obviously
must have heard
you
about
do the
my past
pistol.
or something. And they said, we're going to cancel this.
So then you do your first 100-miler and you run it in 14 hours something.
Yeah. But I was
And
already
that one
in.
looks like it's up in Maryland. Was that trail or road?
It was like hard packed gravel, and with a few good climbs coming back up to the camp every like 30, 40 miles. So
I
it
bet you
wasn't.
experienced some good highs and lows in that one.
Oh yeah, my first one, I went out blazing, like everybody does,
Mm-hmm.
and found myself just hanging on for dear life for like the last 30, 40 miles. And so that was a tough one, but yeah, for sure. That's a whole different world because the next year, like, let's see, I did 2020 Dismal Swamp, and then 2021 Dismal Swamp. So actually, the 100Ks became before um, the 100 miles. So I did
Mhm.
100K. So I did 100K at the end of 2020 at Dismal Swamp, right after the next year after JFK, right?
Yeah.
So I knew then, like in the 100K, I was on pace for the world championship qualifying time of 7:20 up until about 42 miles in 2020. It was late December, like early December. That's what it was. I don't know if you ever heard about that race or not, but it's all
Mm-mm.
greenway. It's 7.77 miles out, 7.77 miles back, straight one way back. Like no twists, no turns, no nothing, just straight flat asphalt up in the swamp of Virginia. And even in December, it was like 75 degrees
Ooh.
Oh wow.
Wow.
the day I did
I
it.
mean, you got first place in it too, and you ran it in 7 hours 51 minutes,
Yeah.
and
So
then you
the
go back the following year and you shave 30 something minutes off that time,
right,
which
that's
is
when I
impressive.
qualified. So I qualified for the world championship team on that run, on the 100K team, and I got selected as an alternate for 2022. And so I didn't obviously go travel with them or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pretty much one of the oldest people selected at 42 years old. Everybody else is in their 20s and very early 30s. So just to get named was a very big honor for me.
Oh yeah.
Um, so since then, I kind of got back to doing the 100-miler distance, and because I kind of enjoy that more than running 100K as fast as possible and hitting like certain splits every single mile. It's very stressful. It's kind of like a marathon. Like you
Mm-hmm.
want to hit those certain splits. So it kind of just takes the fun out of it for me. So I just wanted to do it, just to say I did it. And then I'm kind of done with that. I like, from now on, I like doing 100 miles because it doesn't matter. I don't have to hit even splits. I'm not going to hit even splits. And it's just about the distance. That's why when I was running with Stamen, and we had a really good conversation, and he just said something to me that clicked. And he was like, early in the miles, he was like, well, I'm here to run 100 miles. Anything that happens after that is bonus. And I'm like, well, that's a good way to look at it. Because I'm just here to run 100 miles. You know, I never thought about it like that. Like, and I was like, well, that's simple, but that's true. Because so many people give up in their goals and DNF in these 100-mile races because they're not on the goal pace they thought they were. And then when things get
Mm-hmm.
really hard, it gets up in here, and all of a sudden
Yes.
it's over, dude.
Yeah.
They would DNF at 87.
Mm-hmm.
And then
And
wake
like,
up the next
dude,
day and hate themselves.
you only had one lap to go. You went 7 laps. Like, why did you quit? You had 4 or 5 hours to complete that loop. Like, in my mind, that's when I get excited, is when I hit the last loop, that's when all heck breaks loose, brother. Because I know that's the victory lap. I was like, I don't care
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
bad I'm feeling. That's the victory lap. So with 100 milers, it's just a completely different world, dude. I just love it. Like, I don't love it at the time, but I love it afterwards, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you learn so much about yourself in a 100-mile race. You know, just like you were talking about, like, you know, some people quit at 87 miles. I mean, I've seen people drop off after 90 miles.
Yep.
And
Oh yeah.
you know, and that's the thing, is like, you learn something from every race, whether it's good or bad. And usually you learn a lot more from the bad races, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's usually how it goes. But, you know, at the same time, getting to run with somebody like you did with Stamen and getting to hear a different perspective, you know, that's the thing that I think is so fun and unique about this sport, is, you know, why people do what they do and how they view the day. And, you know, some people's there and they're going to tell you they're there to break the course record. Other people's going to tell you their goal is to win. Some people's goal is just to finish.
Yeah.
You know, and there's people that's there that they've tried this race 4 times in a row and they've never finished it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of humbling to hear all that, and to hear Stamen say, you know, I'm here to run 100 miles. Whatever happens after that's bonus. That's a good way to look at it, because a lot of us, just like you were talking about earlier, we put this expectation of, you know, I've trained all year. I plan on running 14 hours and 30 minutes. I'm going to break the course record. I'm going to be first place. And the first little thing that goes wrong puts a lot of doubt in your mind. And then you got to think about that for the next 10 hours as you run that loop. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to deal with sometimes. And, you
Yeah.
know, the more hundreds you do, the better you get at it, but it still doesn't get that out of your mind.
No, it doesn't. It's
So
always there.
when you showed up at Pistol, did you have a huge expectation you'd put on yourself?
I knew my training was going really well, and I'd never been at this course. I'd run asphalt courses before with the 100K, so I knew it would
Mhm.
get your legs up more. Um, so I thought uh, running under 15 hours was very doable, even on a bad day, to be honest, because I should have been able to be in a sub 14-hour shape on a super flat course, like just flat out.
Mm-hmm.
So Pistol wasn't as flat as I thought it was going to be, and me and Stamen kind of joked about that, like, because he had run it the year before. He was like, "Yeah, flat and fast, right?" And we're hitting the back half. I'm like, "Yeah, this is some BS, dude." I was like, "I did not train for this, and all the twists and turns and all that. That kind of
Yeah,
add
it's
up
got
on
a little bit on that back half for sure.
yeah, the
Yeah,
back
when you're
half
running
really.
back up, when you're running up the backside of that pond, just that
Yep.
real slow climb. I mean, there's some elevation, you know.
Yeah, it's very deceptive, and then the short, quick ones, the short ups and downs that just hit you out of nowhere, especially when you're going flat ground for quite some time, and when you hit those, it's just like a shock to your system.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm I've done a lot better, like at CNO, um, where it's just flat, fast for miles. And I just
Mhm.
lock into a rhythm and go. And then pistol, like, so I guess, you know, the previous year coming into that, I did Homestead first, which I didn't do as well at. And then 4 weeks later, I ran CNO for my third time. And it's the first time I ever had 100 miles within 4 weeks of each other. I was just trying it, and I didn't plan that out. Like, it was 2 weeks after I had run Homestead, I was feeling a whole lot better than I had run and felt um, 2 weeks after my first 200 miles. And so I was like toying with the idea. I think I could go and run CNO Canal 100 in 2 weeks just to see if I could finish with no time
Mhm.
goal or nothing. And I'd end up doing getting. And so I was like, well, even at pistol, like, okay, that was in late April. I was able to do that. CNO Canal was the back to back,
Mhm.
and went 14:56 there. A month before that was not planned to do the double.
Mhm.
So that was kind of like just seeing what I could do. Then I kind of surprised myself by running my second fastest out of the 3 times I've ran there. And the year before, I went 15:21, and that was my only 100 I was going for. So I actually ran faster than the year before with only 4 weeks rest between Umstead.
Oh wow.
And so at that point, I was like, okay, I think this ultra legs thing is actually a real possible thing people are talking about. Because here I
Yeah.
am, like, I started 19, late 19. Here I am 20, 21, 22, 4 or 5 years in now of doing
Mm.
ultra running training and training specifically like an ultra runner for 4 years.
What so what does your training normally look like? What do you focus on? Do you focus on speed or endurance, or do you do a little bit of both?
Well, a little bit of both, like Mark and with back to back long runs,
Mhm.
but I've done most of my ultra running build ups have not been over 20 miles, 25 miles, and I haven't done many like 30, 35, 40 type mile runs. I haven't done that. Like, usually I'm doing an 8 to 12 week build up, and I probably run lower miles than most ultra people um, at my level, I would assume, because what I see other people are doing are just like astronomically way more mileage than I do.
Mhm.
But that just is not fun to me.
Well, and it's obviously not necessary for you
Yeah.
because you're competing in high level. I mean, you look at most of your races, you've podiumed almost all of the bigger races that you've ran. And you're talking sub 15, 14 hour 100 milers. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just like what you were talking about just a minute ago, your back to back races. Well, you did that again this year. And this year you went with Pistol 100 and then Umstead 100, and you
Yeah.
podiumed both of those.
So,
And you did both, you know, which are different style races. You're talking about a road race and a trail race,
yeah.
and you ran one 14 something, and you ran the other one 15 hours something, and that's huge. It's a couple weeks
Mm-hmm.
apart. Um, do you prefer road or trail?
Huh. Well, I think road beats you up more, but like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not when you say trail, like Umstead is not a trail. Like, it's basically hard packed gravel.
Mm-hmm.
No roots, no rocks. It's not single track. It's an 8 foot wide path through the woods. But just what
Is
grew
it kind of
around.
like a rails to trail?
No, completely different. Rails to trail is more like C&O, where it's
Okay.
along the Potomac River. It's flat and fast as far as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
And Umstead is a 12.5 mile loop, and it's hard packed gravel, but it's got 1,000 feet of gain per loop.
Mm.
And C&O probably has about 800 feet of gain total.
Oh wow,
That's definitely a big
man,
difference.
that is pretty flat. That's
Mhm.
fast.
Yeah, so that's where I've done better at those. Like Dismal Swamp was 0 elevation gain.
That's awesome.
It was just a
I can see
asphalt.
why you had trouble with the pistol on the back half now.
Yeah, it was just a 0 flat asphalt greenway, straight out, straight back. Pistol was just a whole nother world for me. Like, so it's kind of hard for me to. I couldn't have trained for that even if I wanted to. Like, because I couldn't have imagined the asphalt and all that. But to get to the question, like, um, if I had to choose between road and trail, it just depends on what type of trail you're talking about. Like, because they call Umstead a trail race, but if you go out and do these single track mountainous races, that's
Mm-hmm.
a whole different type of trail race,
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
which I'm not a fan of. Like, if I'm gonna do a race, you're gonna see me at one that I'm gonna be able to do a decent time on. It's runnable, and I'm gonna be able to stretch my legs out a little bit.
Brian, you just like ever going out to a local 5K and just destroying a bunch of people?
I used to. Well, at 42, I don't know what I could do in a 5K anymore. I used to be decent, I guess, but
I think we've all come to the conclusion it's the most pain you can have in 3 miles when you just try to go all out at our age.
yeah. Well, I could probably still do one around 17 minutes if I really had to. But,
Well, he done beat me.
well, as most of my build-ups going back to training, like I always have a marathon block in there. And
Mm-hmm.
I train as I'm going to run a marathon, but I'm doing it ultra running style with the back-to-backs and only one speed workout per week. So I do one hard speed workout a week, but it's never anything faster than 10K to have marathon pace.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not doing any double runs either. Every single one of my runs are singles and back-to-back long runs. And I noticed like a lot of the ultra runner guys will do a lot of doubles, like 4 to 5, even 6 or 7 doubles in a week. And I just don't have the time for that. But the way I approach it is a little bit different, um, because I want to spend as much time with my family as possible,
Yeah.
and I'm not getting paid for this crap.
Nope.
I'm paying for it.
We're giving everybody the money.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm paying y'all to suffer, but this don't even make sense.
That's what my wife says. When I get done and I'm like, oh man, you're all laid up, and she goes, "You pay to do this. Remember that. You do
You
this to
paid to
yourself."
do it.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're
That's
right.
what reminded me on Saturday or Sunday when on the way home. She's like, "Just remember, you paid for this." So,
Yeah.
Do you think that's why you've got addicted, or you fell in love more with the 100 milers? Is because of that, because of the suffering? Because just listening to your whole story, you're talking about, you got cut from the baseball team multiple times, then the drugs, and the up and down, but it's kind of that roller coaster
Mm-hmm.
of coming up and down. And man, a 100 miler is absolutely a roller coaster. Do you
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that is some of the draw for you?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I'd say that's 100% of the draw, because Oh man.
Well, I mean, I'm just asking because it seems like that's kind of, you know, I almost wonder if you like a little bit of that adversity because you've had it in your life, and you kind of need that. You like to feel that some, and that's just what I was wondering because like we all do 100 milers for different reasons. We all get addicted to them for different reasons. Let's be honest. You don't run 100 milers because you love to run 100 milers.
Yeah.
When you're in 100 miler, you're going through all kinds of things, and we all have our reasons for it. But I was just kind of trying to tie all that together because listening to your story, I feel like that's kind of what you're chasing.
Yeah. Well, if you really want to truly know, like, I'd say in the beginning of my racing career, like I try to explain, I ran for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And until I started running for God and I started running ultras in 2019, ever since then, it has not been for myself. Um, it has been truly for His glory and only that. And a lot of people won't understand that because they don't know where I'm coming from, but I'm not coming from a place of religion because I couldn't stand religion most of my
Mm-hmm.
life. And it's more of a spiritual experience for me. When I do 100 miles, um, I will experience a life in a day, like they say. But
Mm-hmm.
life in a day by yourself is miserable. But life in a day with a higher power, like what I have, and the hope and assurance that I have, and that peace that I have, that I've found through that, is nothing in comparison to anything I'll ever go through in this life. The deepest, darkest valleys is like doesn't compare because at the end of the day, I know where my hope rests, and it's not based on any performance I do or how good I am or how many followers I have on Instagram or whatever, um, or what the result on paper is going to be. If I'm living this life outside of myself, and I think we can all do this, even if we don't believe in God, Jesus Christ, or whatever, we can all go back to the moral life, and that's what a lot of the ultra running community has. Whether they believe in whatever they believe, they all have this sense of community and this sense of love and this sense of support. And
Mm-hmm.
that's basically what the Christian philosophy and doctrine is all about. Is Christ said to love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. And the second commandment is as great as the first. Love your neighbor as yourself. So if I'm not loving my other neighbor as myself, then everything else is by the wayside and everything else is meaningless in my life. And the purpose of my life has no meaning anymore if I'm just living for myself. But if I'm truly out there running and I'm supporting other people and they're supporting me, I'm in first, they're in last. They're supporting me just as much as I'm supporting them. We're on the same course, running the same 100 miles. And just because I finished in 14 hours and 15 hours and they finished in 28, 29, 30, it doesn't matter. We ran the same race. We ran the same 100 miles. We shared the same course. We went the same distance. But how did we run the distance? Did we run it with gratitude? Did we run it just for ourselves? Did we run it to inspire other people? Did we help other people along the way when they were struggling? And that's what life is all about. And that's the 100-mile race. It's not just the race. It's not just a race. It's the race of life. Like this is the race of life you have. You have this amount of time in your life. On your gravestone, you're going to have one little dash between your birth date and your death date. And what happened in between that tiny little dash is just a couple of little words on your epistone, like, well, he was a good father. he was a good person, whatever. Like, I don't care what they write on my gravestone, it don't matter. But what you did in that little span of time is going to affect all of eternity. And like, whether you believe in eternity or not, it is real. It is true. I found that to be true because I pushed against religion all my life, and I'm not a religious person. I'll just say that Christ didn't come here to start a religion, and people turned it into religion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, me and Chris Stamen, we had a long talk on our arduous journey racing against each other, but we weren't even racing against each other. It was more like a brotherhood that was formed. And only God could do that, because I've never had a race in my life where I'm racing against somebody head to head, and I know third place ain't even in the question. He's like hours back. So really, third place, I could walk it in and get second. So it's me against him. That's it. And we start talking, and he brings up his friend that tried to commit suicide just a few weeks before, and that's why he was running. And he didn't know my story, but I had dealt with that, and I was on that other end of putting a gun to my head. And I know what it's like to be at that lowest point. And so it was like we talked about those things that only God could orchestrate. God put me here in Tennessee and put him here. And here we are running together and having this conversation for hours, and not thinking about me beating him, him beating me. It's like the best man wins. And if you have it today, you go get it. If I have it today, I'll go get it. But I'm going to keep supporting you. And as soon as he took off from me, it was like, all right, this dude's on another level today. And I can't mess with him. Like, unless he blows up later on in the later miles, I'm not going to catch him. And so that's kind of what I was in the still competitive mode, but this is how it worked. Is like we still had that moment, and I was really truly wanting him to win, and I was really truly rooting for him every single time I saw him, and I couldn't have been happier that he did what he did, because I know on paper he won, but God told me later, well, you're also victorious because you did my will, and you shared the gospel, and you let my word go out, and you showed the love of Christ, and you did what you were supposed to do. And this is why I put you here today, to minister to not only Chris, but his friend, through Chris, that tried to commit suicide, that I had walked through 12 years before. And I was right there. And I shouldn't be here today. Only by the grace of God am I here. And so, if my message is to go forth, it's a message of hope. It's a message of reconciliation. It's a message of love, like that we're not too far gone. It don't matter how far down you've gone. You can always be restored. And there's always a hope. Even when you're hopeless, like there's a hope. Like, even if you don't want to believe in everything I'm saying that is true, I'm only saying it because I experienced it, and I've gone through it. I'm going through it, and I know it's real. And if it wasn't, then I wouldn't be standing here or sitting here saying it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my life. I was like, the 100-mile race is the race. It's a race, but it ain't the race. Like, the race is this life that we have.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it?
Wow.
That's good stuff.
Well, and you said it perfectly earlier, and it's, this trail running community and, the people and the camaraderie, and, you're just kind of going all through that. And you said it best with, Jesus, and, it's love your neighbor.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you feel like in these races. I mean, it doesn't matter about race or religion or what you identify as. It doesn't matter. Everybody there is cheering each other on, and we're loving on them, and we're trying to get them through. And I don't know, I don't guess you probably know this, but that one lap where Chris started pulling away from you, he ran up to me and said, "You take care of him and make sure he's running great. Keep him going. He's going to have a great day." He said, "Take care of him, David." And when you come through, I made sure every time that I could see you that like you had everything you needed, but you were rock solid. You didn't need anything. But that was Chris though, because he was, he felt the same way you did.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to make sure you had everything you needed to succeed.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yep.
Love your neighbor, love everybody around you, and take care of them. And that's what you feel in those races.
Yeah.
And that's something that you just can't really explain until you're a part of it and you just go out and do it. Whether you're volunteering or you're running, you're going to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing else like it. Thank you so much for saying all that and sharing it. I love it. We normally ask people why they run. I'm pretty sure you just answered that,
Yep.
so I get to skip that question.
I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, if you ask him, I'm like, this every point. So it's like, you have nailed it, man.
But while Matt's pulling up the questions, I just want to say this real quick. And while he's pulling up the questions, I want to take a pause on this and just say, speaking of that, we did lose a really genuine trail runner this past week. His name's Hunt Brumby. He lost his battle with cancer, and, Hunt, we just want to give you a shout out here because you made such a huge impact on this trail running community. You were one of the first people I met at a John Harden race. And man, we're just going to miss you so much, brother. We love you, and, you're going to be missed by so many people. So I know that his family has shared a lot, and he's touched so many people. And one of the things I'll never forget is following his Vol State journey. I mean, he struggled so much. I remember him posting on the bench, and, he was running out of time. And I think it was Becca and John showed up and kind of walked with him for a little while, but he finished that race. And that was one of the coolest journeys to get to watch on social media at the time, and it was just awesome. So
yeah, I think he had a following bigger than anything, where we was all daily just trying to keep up with him.
So, that goes back to show what this community is about. I mean, he's going to be greatly missed. He touched so many people and made such a huge impact on people's lives. And it goes back to what you're talking about when you meet someone in a race and they're just genuine and kind. And that was Hunt. And Hunt, you're definitely going to be missed.
All right, I got a few questions. Some are from the listeners and some are from me. So, all right, what does your strength training look like?
I do like a full body strength workout once a week. I don't know if you ever heard of Les Mills.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of do like a functional strength training day.
Okay.
And then strength development the next week. So I kind of do it in phases where I'm building and then just more functional.
I thought you was about to throw out a Les Mills body pump class for us.
Oh, I used to do that.
Me too. Those things are rough.
Yeah, I started out on that. And because I was just lifting heavier. And so I just went to a more lighter weight, but more functional training.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a few times a week after that, I'll do push-ups, and that's about it.
Out of all the distances you've done, what is your favorite?
Well, I guess I'd have to say the 100-mile is becoming my favorite.
Till he does a 200 mile.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you
we
probably
got
got
200
200
next.
potential in you.
No,
I know you
I ain't
looked at
doing
it.
that.
He says it. Yep. What is your preferred hydration and food during the 100 milers?
I usually stick to tailwind primarily, and then just recently started doing hemogels
Mm-hmm.
and just occasional Coke, Pepsi if I need it. That's it. That's it.
What was it like being part of the Team USA, even if it was for an alternate?
Well, it was a pretty honorable experience just to get accepted and be on the team and say you're a part of Team USA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, well, nerve-wracking to see if you're going to be selected. If someone drops out, you're next man up.
Yep.
So, yeah, that part of it I didn't like.
I know when I saw him at the pistol and he had that USA jersey on, I'm like, "Ooh, who's this guy? He looks official." And, then you start looking him up. You're like, "Okay, he's pretty
He
fast.
is official.
He's pretty fast." Okay. During the 100s, do you prefer handhelds or a pack?
Usually do handhelds. I just had a waist pack this last couple. Um, that naked run, like
Mhm.
welt based.
Yeah.
That's all I did. Put like a 17-ounce flask in that and gels. That's pretty much it because they were loop courses, so you don't have to carry a lot.
That is all of the questions I have.
So I have, since I didn't get to ask my question of why do you run, I got to ask you a different question, and then we can be done unless somebody else has a question. But of your running career, what are you most proud of?
I'd say running that first marathon, Charlotte, 2014. Just getting back out there and just doing it because it was just like I thought I was done with running and never run again, and to be able to come back and do that, which started everything else ever since.
Mhm.
It's just like that was the proudest moment I think I have of myself, which some people might think is weird, but not
No,
for
not
me.
at all. Everything is special to us for different reasons. So,
Yeah.
and that's what brought you back. So I can completely understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Brian, do you have any questions for us?
I know y'all are pretty big ultra runners, and saw you've done the Vol State, right?
Yep, all three of us did it the same year last year. Was it last year?
Wow.
Yeah, last year.
That's true.
That seems like a pretty big deal too.
Yeah,
Hey, there's a 300 mile you can do.
314 miles in the middle of
I think we
Tennessee
talked to God
summer
a
is
lot
rough.
out there.
Oh, you definitely
And the dead possums
Oh,
and armadillos.
armadillos.
The armadillos were the worst.
yeah,
The worst.
Wrong trick.
That's long.
Yeah, it was a learning curve. It was rough.
Yeah,
You learn a lot about yourself in those multi-day
You
races.
sure do.
yeah. That's I don't know if I ever learned that or not. 100
It's
miles
definitely
seems like a long
something worth experiencing once in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I will tell you that. It's amazing to do that and to live through that because you just really don't know what all goes through your mind. You're talking about a roller coaster day 3 when you've had 7 hours of sleep in 3 days and you've ran 200 something miles and you're just, you wouldn't be happy with a Snickers bar, like it would be too much chocolate for you. Like it was so crazy to have those emotional swings.
Can I only imagine? Like, Yeah.
You might get addicted.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll just stick with the 100 milers for now. Maybe later on.
Well,
But,
Brian, thank you so much for sharing your story
Yeah, man.
and your journey. We know we got to let you go. We don't want to make you late for your 7 o'clock. So, but thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey. It's just awesome to see what all you've accomplished, and most importantly, you know, the life that you have been through and the ups and downs, and how you managed to pull yourself out of that, you know, and you know, with your wife, you know, your girlfriend at the time that helped you come back, and running that first marathon, all the way up to your latest accomplishment of these back-to-back 100-mile podiums within, you know, 4 weeks of each other. I don't think we've seen your best performance yet. I think it's still to come, and I think the way that you're training, you're going to have a long career.
Yeah.
So kudos to you and everything you've done, and thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast with us and just sharing your journey. I got a feeling this one's going to be really popular.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time, man. We will let you go. If you don't care, hang on for just a second after I close this, and we'll talk for just a second. But thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank y'all.